the earth rings like a bell.
We now know that cancer is vulnerable between the frequencies of 100,000 hertz and 300,000 hertz.
The guys that created the religious symbols know all this stuff. These guys knew all this stuff. We live in an electromagnetic universe. This is what we are told, where everything spins and vibrates. And the electromagnetic universe is actually a subtle deception. You'll understand as we go why I say this. It's a very subtle deception, a very important subtle deception. Because it's not the electromagnetic universe that we live in. It's the magneto-electric universe that we live in. And just twisting those two around would have given us a very different perception while we grow up about the world that we live in and the universe and this reality of us. If we don't think of it as the electromagnetic but the magneto-electric. Huge consciousness shift in growing up with that kind of thinking. Everything has its own specific frequency, as we mentioned before. Prime resonance frequency. Everything vibrates at its own frequency. That's how we can manipulate things with frequency and sound and resonance. All comes to the same thing when you start breaking it down. Sound and resonance are also the common links of all creation. In Christianity, we have the Word. We have the Om in Hinduism, the Egyptians that sang the universe into creation. And my favorite, the Aboriginals that believe the world was sung into creation with 3 sacred songs, or brought into creation with 3 sacred songs, which is the equivalent to the Holy Trinity. And we start seeing the whole important structure of music and resonance and chord structures, harmonic resonance in music. We get the 6 days of creation very obviously become visible in sacred geometry, and the 6 aspects of Om show us cymatic patterns, and the 6 aspects of the all-seeing eye of Horus show us 6 very obvious resonating ratios that
What will you do with your
of Horus shows 6 very obvious resonating ratios that tell us that all these ancient cultures understood sound, resonance, and frequency, and it's encoded in all the things that they did. Sound is the source of all creation, and it's all about coherence and harmonic resonance. Even in our bodies, if the cells of our body are not in coherent harmonic resonance, our cells are in dis-ease, in disease, and that's how we get sick. And if we're not resonating with the earth frequencies, the natural earth frequencies of Gaia, we are in dis-ease with the Mother Earth that we live on and walk on, and that's why we get sick. Hans Jenny's beautiful documentary called Cymatics in the 60s will show you exactly how sound is pretty much behind everything in creation. We've already looked at sound manifesting in physical form. This is the quickest and easiest way for us to comprehend, once again, how this untouchable, invisible thing called sound can manifest in physical form. That little thing on the metal plate, with the sand on the metal plate on that video. That's just probably the quickest way for us to say, okay, sound can manifest physical shapes. And sound also inspired religious symbols, because the guys that created the religious symbols know all this stuff. These guys knew all this stuff, and they know they're all connected to the ancient bloodlines. And some of these beautiful images of the cymatic patterns, when you drill into it, you get that perfect cross in a circle of the source of the sound. And that's it. The source of the sound is this beautiful cross in a circle, and this is why most of the religious movements have the cross in a circle as their symbol, recognizing that the source of everything in creation is sound, the sound of the Creator. And sound and resonance, it does everything you can imagine. Right? Creates light, levitates, boils water, creates DNA. Sound heals and destroys pathogens, moves beyond the speed of light. And we have hypersound and laser and Saser technology, not laser, sound lasers, Saser. Sound makes things invisible, energizes the water we drink, so the water actually heals us, and it also energizes the air that we breathe, so that we can actually survive from the air that we breathe. Otherwise, we would not survive from the air that we breathe if it wasn't for sound. And very importantly, sound is the precursor to electromagnetism, not the other way around. Sound causes electromagnetism. This is a big one for us to come to terms with. Ancient civilizations understood all this, and they used sound and frequency as a source of energy in every possible way. They used sound and frequency to control humanity, and it seems that they were focusing for some reason on our pineal gland. They had to destroy our pineal gland, and the more you study this, the more you realize why that was critical, because it seems that our pineal gland was that third eye that so many of us are aware of, or we keep calling it our third eye, that connected us to everything in creation and allowed us to pick up the frequencies and the invisible, untouchable, unfathomable stuff through the third eye and actually be able to communicate telepathically with everything and everyone and interact not only with other beings, but with other entities and beings and animals and trees and rocks because of our third eye. That thing there is the magic part of our body and our anatomy that's been completely destroyed. And it seems from all these images that they took a lot of time and effort to destroy our pineal gland. And they continue to do so today, as you are aware of. And they used cone-shaped tools to do this. This is a key thing here. Can clearly see the cone-shaped tools, and this is a repetitive theme all the time, and the pineal gland, and also, by the look of it, the DNA that is obviously the code that creates the pineal gland in our anatomy eventually, and sound and frequency. Notice the magnetic wrist watch here, and I'm giving the game away here because I'm telling you what that is. There is a cone. This guy's holding a cone in his hand, very important cone-shaped tool that he's doing some function with. And there's another cone here on his arm. At first you think, oh, it's just an interpretation of the guy's muscle. No, it's a cone. It's a perfect cone that feeds into this magnetic wristwatch. And you'll know why that's a magnetic wristwatch very soon. And the same kind of control through using frequency and sound and magnetism and electromagnetism that was used in ancient times, the all-seeing eye of Horus, it's still being used by the broadcast companies today. You know, it's encoded in their logos. It's everywhere around us, but we're just too blind to see it. Sound as a tool and technology, very important. Sound creates light. Even this, you add attach a LED light to a speaker, and you put a speaker in a noisy place, you light the little LED up. That's spectacular. So it works both ways, light and sound. Every sound frequency has a light frequency, and every light frequency has a sound frequency attached to it. Corey Good, in a recent interview, said that he was in some giant underground cavern somewhere, and there was this invisible source of light. And when he asked, where does the light come from? He was told, the light was coming from the sound. The light was being created by the sound. In Egypt, the ankh was used for healing. That's just a resonating device, sound frequency, resonating for healing. The Native American medicine wheel is clearly just a cross in a circle as a source of all things, so from sound to heal people. Royal Rife, the man who cured all disease in 1931, he did that with sound and resonance and frequency, spectacular achievement in curing cancer in the wards. This is his handwritten book that I had the privilege of seeing. It's in a private library in Sedona, Arizona. There's about 700 pages in there, I think, and there are page after page with his own handwritten frequencies for all the different diseases. One of my biggest, most exciting obsessions at the moment, and if there are people in this room that can do this, please go away and do this. George Lakhovsky's multiple wave oscillator is a spectacular device with which he cured his father, listen carefully, he cured his father of quadriplegia. You don't cure people of quadriplegia, right? His father was admitted with quadriplegia into the hospital in the USA. 6 weeks later, he walked out on crutches. The way he treated him is every day he walked in there with a little small handheld portable multiple wave oscillator from George Lakhovsky, and treated him for about 45 minutes up and down his spine, after which he exposed him to color light therapy for another hour. He did this for 4 weeks, 6 weeks. His father walked out on crutches. I saw the hospital report. It says, Mr. So-and-so exhibited a remarkable recovery. That's it. It's spectacular. They just won't go there. They will not be, engaged in any explanation. In 2011, Anthony Holland, this is now in a TED talk, show us which frequencies kill cancer cells. Very briefly, Okay, he tells us between 100,000 hertz and 300,000 hertz kills cancer cells. And he shows us in a TED Talk.
We now know that cancer is vulnerable between the frequencies of 100,000 hertz and 300,000 hertz. So now we attack leukemia cells. Leukemia cell number 1 tries to grow a copy of itself, but the new cell is shattered into dozens of fragments and scattered across the slide. Leukemia cell number 2 then hyperinflates and also dies. Leukemia cell number 3 then tries to make another cancer cell. The new cell is shattered and the original cell dies.
Magnetrons obviously generate huge amounts of energy, and that's just sound. It's a resonant cavity magnetron. Resonant cavity magnetron that's used in laser beams, laser technology, microwaves, all use magnetrons for that technology. Sound acts as a cloak of invisibility. There's so much new information about this. This opens a whole new chapter and debate. There's very advanced new sound cloaking technology right now available. This plastic 3D acoustic pyramid acts as a acoustic cloak, make things invisible when you put it underneath it, when you expose that pyramid to specific sound frequencies. And that pyramid is reminiscent of what? Is reminiscent very strongly of Eastern architecture. Sound creates hurricanes. In 2003, these guys lodged a patent to create hurricanes with sound. And then here's another one. Sound creates supercluster galaxies. When I said earlier, the lower the frequency, the larger the cymatic shape. Now you've got a frequency that's 57 octaves lower than middle C, rumbling away from a supermassive black hole in the Perseus cluster in the key of B flat, creating a supercluster galaxy. And it's amazing. This is apparently an image of it. I like the one on the left because when you watch Hans Jenny's Cymatics documentary, that looks identical to the images of lycopodium powder on a metal plate with sound frequencies on it. This is like lycopodium powder that's creating supercluster galaxies. This is insane. So you start to get into the idea of as above, so below. There's no end. This is what really disturbs me. The fact that we could put out fire with sound, and yet this has not been employed or used anyway. Why? Because it's not good for business. Remember, the moment we stop the growth and the need for money, the entire global financial system collapses. This is just spectacular. These kids developed this little resonator that puts out a fire. 5 seconds. Count it from the moment they put it down to the frying pan to when the fire is out. 5 seconds. Imagine the fire trucks arriving at a burning building. The ladders go up, and instead of fire hoses, a bunch of speakers get switched on and put out this frequency. That fire in the building will be out in literally few seconds or a minute. The entire fire, everywhere, because it'll resonate right through the building. But that's not going to happen, because that's going to save a lot of money.
Swarm robotics, where it'd be attached to a drone, and that would be applied to forest fires or even building fires where you wouldn't want to sacrifice.
5 seconds. Sound energizes the air we breathe, and this is how we actually oxygenate our bodies and our lungs, or through our lungs, the blood in our veins and our arteries rather. Because as you breathe, the air that you breathe makes a bloody noise, and it goes into your lungs, and it goes into the smaller and smaller orifices as it moves into your lungs. So it speeds up and speeds up and speeds up, and it goes higher and higher and creates these frequencies. And it's the energy and the sound of the air that you breathe that actually energizes the oxygen in the air. So that oxygen is buzzing as it's moving faster and faster. By the time it reaches your alveoli, and it goes from the alveoli into your artery, from the lungs into the arteries, that oxygen in the air is buzzing and energized from the sound. And that's when it goes into your blood, and it's used in the blood, and it's stripped of the vibrating energy. And when it's stripped of the vibrating energy, you breathe it out again. And it just repeats that cycle. And that's how we energize the oxygen that we breathe. that don't teach you this at medical school. In 2011, Luc Montagnier spontaneously generated DNA by exposing a tube of water to certain sound frequencies that had the frequencies of a DNA in it and constituted DNA in an empty test tube. If you can create DNA in an empty test tube with sound, now you start understanding how we can start cloning other species and other creatures just by sound and vibration.